everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to this month's sew along project. We are doing Butterick 6222 view A, and yes, I am color blocking and I'm actually using the exact same colors. So I want to come in today just starting to talk, you know how I like to do my sew alongs, talk a little bit about the selection process, the fabrics chosen, different things of that nature, and offer up any tips that I may have. And I'll get to what the adjustment is I will be making. There's two adjustments I will be making for this particular dress. But let's go ahead and get into the pattern. So for those who may be familiar with Butterick Connie Crawford line of patterns, you know that her pattern sizes start from extra large to a 6X. And when you turn over to the back of her envelope and you read through her information, you know that her sizing is based on ready to wear sizing. However, I would not go off of that. What I would do, and this is what I did, pull out all of your pattern pieces, iron everything out because it will be quite wrinkly. If you are planning to trace anything off, go ahead and trace off your pattern. For this particular one, I am not doing any tracing of the pattern. It just has some weird pieces that I figure and I'm going down in size anyway, so I was like, I won't trace these pieces. But when you go to the back of the envelope, you will see all of the size range for the bust, waist, hip, and the bicep. Those are really, really good measurements to have on hand. If you do not have your measurement on hand for those particular areas, go ahead and do those. I will also mention that the Connie Crawford pattern, if you open up the pattern booklet, and I did go over this as well, there are suggestions in here if you need to make any type of adjustment. If you need an armhole adjustment, a hip adjustment, a cup adjustment, a shoulder adjustment, different things of that nature, you can. And the shoulder adjustment here is really more for what I would do for a sloping shoulder. Is this shoulder adjustment that they show in this particular pattern. But there are some tips on how to, what adjustments you may need to make. Now, I will say for this particular pattern, what I do like, again, it is a very size inclusive pattern. And so you have measurements that start from the bust of 34 and go all the way up to a bust of 68. That is a really nice range. And so hopefully you will find something in this range that will fit for you, for those who are deciding to do this particular dress. Now, I've had this pattern in my stash. I try to mark on the front of my patterns how long I've had it. I've had it since July of 2018. And so I've always wanted to do it because I absolutely love the color blocking on this dress. It's absolutely beautiful. And I love the v-neck shape, and I love the drape. Now, if you look at this pattern on the website, and I'll try to pop up a picture here as well, you will notice in the back there is a lap zipper. I do not plan on doing a lap zipper. I just don't personally care for how they look. So that's just the one part of it that I will not be doing. So for me, with my measurements, because right now I'm sitting at I just took my measurements today just to be sure, because my weight had fluctuated and I'm now getting back to where my last starting off point was. So I'm at a 51 for the full bust, waist is at 45, and my hips is about a 56. And so, or the area they have you measure is about a 56. And so, and my sleeve, I would fit into the 1X sleeve. So for this particular garment, and this will be my first time making it, I am deciding to go with a 1X. And so the 1X on the back of the envelope, and again, this is why you want to be mindful when you're looking at the measurements. Now, the measurements on the back of the envelope say between 46 to 48 for the bust, waist between 38 to 40, in the bicep 16 and a half, and then the hip between the 54 and 56. Well, I looked at the finished garment measurement on the pattern, and there's almost 2 inches of ease in all of these. Now, that's not enough for me to decide to go to a 2X. And based on the drape of the garment, it's not a tight fitting garment at all. It does have a nice amount of room to it. So I was like, no, I'm gonna stick to the 1X. But the one thing I am going to do for this garment is I will sew the entire garment at a 1/4 inch seam allowance or a 3/8. I haven't quite decided totally yet, but I'm thinking either a 1/4 inch. I'll probably do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'll be finishing everything off on my serger. Yeah, I'll do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That'll be fine. I will do a 1/4 inch seam allowance for the entire dress. That gives me just a little bit more room, probably more room than I need in my waist though. So we shall see. I may do 3/8 of an inch because the pattern calls for 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So those are about the only adjustments I plan on making. The length of the skirt and everything I'm fine with. Again, if I find once I finish off the garment that it needs to be shortened or anything like that, I will shorten it. But based on where it hits the model, and I did not find in here, and I'll pop it on the screen if I do find where it says what height this pattern was drawn up for the model. But at any rate, it is a 5/8 inch seam allowance. No, it doesn't say. It's a 5/8 inch seam allowance, so I'll probably go down to a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, 3/8, maybe around the waist area. And yeah, when I look at the pattern, it's not a hard sew at all. It is not a hard sew at all. And so this should not take very long, but we shall see. We're going to go ahead and get started. And let me show you, first of all, my fabric. Now, the fabric that I have chosen for the sew along is both a crepe. The pattern calls for either, you can do either a rayon, is it Faille? Faille. Not quite sure how to pronounce that one. Linen, a crepe are the, it says lightweight and medium weight woven fabrics is what's recommended. And so I chose a crepe. And as you can tell by the picture, I also, and it's coming off super bright on the screen, but it's a little bit more, both colors are a little bit more muted than maybe what they're showing on the screen. But yes, so I'm pretty much choosing the exact same colors. As you can tell, I have, what I did do, because I wasn't sure once the fabric came which zipper, because the main color, the pink on the pattern is the main piece for the pink that's on the back. And so I didn't know, I would change my mind which one I would want to do. So I got both an orange and a pink zipper. And I also have my thread, both threads here as well, my orange and my pink thread. What I am going to do, and if you are able and you do have more than one machine, because you are, the way this is color blocked and the way that you're sewing it, you may want to go ahead and thread up both of your machines, and that's what I plan to do. One of my machines, which is a Brother Pace Setter 2500, and then I have a Brother SE 400. I'm just gonna thread up both of those machines with both of the threads, so when I'm getting to that part that need that color thread, I don't have to worry about switching it out, and that will make that process smoother. So I do highly recommend, if you are deciding to do color block and you do have two machines, go ahead and thread up both of your machines. And so what I have decided to do, this orange fabric came from Fabric Mart about, I've had this in my stash for about 4 years. So I doubt it's available anymore, but this is from Fabric Mart. And what I found once I receive my other crepe. This is actually from fabric.com, and this I got in my haul, if you saw my recent haul video. And so this is a Talio crepe, and I will leave a link to this down in the description box if you're interested. What I have found is that the crepe for the they looked about the same online, but what the reality is this orange is a little heavier than the pink crepe. So what I am going to do, where you see on her where everything is pink, that will be my orange, and where everything is orange on her will be my pink. And the reason I'm doing that is because those particular body pieces cover a lot more of the body, and so I think I want something thicker there. And again, it's not that much thicker, but it's physically noticeable. And so I will use the lighter weight for the more for the other areas of the dress. So that is the fabric that I am using. Very excited about it. And my thread, everything very simple. You only need the zipper, the thread, and your fabric, and you are good to go. Now what I will do now is transition and show you my cheater method. The other adjustment I will have to make, and I knew it looking at the pattern pieces, are the shoulders. The shoulders are just too wide, and this dress will end up dropping off my shoulder, I can tell. And so I have a cheater method and how I make that adjustment on the pattern. It'll be on the bodice front and the bodice back of the pattern. What I will be doing is using my pattern that I know fits me perfectly on the shoulder, which is the Cashmere Upton, which I just did a sew along for that. You can find the link to that in the iCards, but that is a perfect fitting shoulder for me. So I'm going to measure that against this pattern minus seam allowances, and then make that adjustment. But I will show you that in the next clip, and then after that you will see me cutting everything out, and then we will get to sewing. Okay, so what I've done in order to determine how much I'm going to take out of the shoulder area, I have my pattern piece here for the Upton, and this is a perfect shoulder fit. So what I'm going to do is measure, and I've already done this, but I'll tell you what I've done. I have taken my measuring tape actually and just measured from one end of the shoulder point to the other end, and I have 3 inches, but I'm gonna take a ½ inch off of that number, which will give me 2.5 for the front, because I'm taking out the seam allowance from the bodice front. Now the bodice back, I am going to do the exact same thing, but I have to take into account this dart. So for the dart, I went ahead and folded the dart out, and again, this is giving me about 3 again, and so I am going to take out the seam allowance for that piece as well, and then that will give me a total of 2.5 for the front and 2.5 for the back. Now I am going to take my Butterick pieces. This is the front. I've only taken one front because they're both the same here, and I have measured starting from the seam allowance. So this, I did mark the 5/8 inch seam allowance in here, which is this much, and that came out to be about 4. And so it looks like I'm going to need to take out a good 1.5 inches, oops, from my front. And then, and I've already measured this, but I just want to show it to you. This is my back bodice piece. Again, I took took out the seam allowance, started there and measured in, and again it was 4, and I'm going to take out the difference between the back and on the upped-in and the back on this is 1.5, so I'll need to take out 1.5. So how I'm going to do that is I am just going to, and I'm going to zoom in here so you can see what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do this on the front and the back piece. So as you can tell, this is the arm side piece, the arm side area, I should say. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to measure in 1.5 inches. I'll use a marker. I will measure in 1.5 inches. I'm just going to use my seam gauge. 1.5 inches, which is not a surprise for me because I already I know that this area for me is pretty short. So, but because this is the 1.5 inches I would take in for the back. And so what I'm going to do is now, that's approximately where I'm at. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to use my curve ruler and go into the arm side. Again, this is a little bit of a cheater method, but I'll show you what that looks like. So what I've done here, hopefully you can see that, is I have laid my ruler and saw where my ruler, how it curves in this area, and I want to follow that same curve to that point. So I'm just going to lift up my ruler, again a cheater's method, and I'm just going to now come out, because we just want it to go into the arm side. So you may not be able to see that too well, but what I have done, and let me grab a marker. So I've grabbed a red marker here, and this is what I am taking out right here. You will notice that I have 2 lines marked. I originally was going to change from the original marking you see, and I drew a second line, but decided against that and went with my original drawing on the pattern. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on the front bodice piece. And then that will be all of the adjustments I'll be making. Now it's time to cut out the fabric, make this adjustment on the front on both bodice pieces, because the bodice has 2 front bodices and 2 back bodices. I'll need to make the same adjustment on all 4 pieces, and then once that's done, then I will go ahead and cut out the fabric. Okay, that is it. Everything is cut out. It is now time to sew.